Yeah. So this is what's meant by sprouting broccoli. You get little pieces like that. Strangely enough, you're not going to believe it. I'm holding a few upside down there. These stalks with these sprouting ones on that have come out from basically in between the trunk and another leaf, then decide that they're going to shoot their own leaves out with more little heads. But see, the size of those heads and the amount of little flower head thingies they got on them, I don't ever think they're going to reach the size of that one above my thumb there. So, yeah, I don't think I've lost anything by cutting those down further. Of course, those of you who might not quite realise, at the end of that stalk that those are on are one of these heads anyway. These are really been left a little bit too long and they're just about to turn into flower. Yeah, one of those things I keep looking at and say, I'll get to that tomorrow, and then tomorrow you work, or tomorrow you got to do something else like clean out this house. Then there's something else that crops up, and then you go, oh, geez, I've got to get the shower system sorted. So then you're playing around with the shower system, yada, 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 yada. And a week later you go, shit, they're almost gone to flower, and I've got to do something real quick. And then you can never find a knife, and I just get into the habit of using box cutters because they seem to do a pretty good job anyway. Yes, I did vacate the house last night. I still got to grab a few blankets and whatnot and put them in a box. I've got, one box full of blankets, and I need a second box. I've got a bunch of those all sitting out in the laundry. I've got about another 5 of those tubs anyway. So, yes, after after going to that hardware store and getting that thing that went, through the wall piece, that thing that couple of flange nuts, rubber O-rings that are huge, and all that business that basically makes the overflow in the little document tub there. The same thing that I used to, you guys probably remember the IBCs over the edge of the hill there, the 6 down there, how I plumbed one of those and turned it into a tank, that same thing that goes through the wall of a plastic container to turn into a tank. That was all I could find, and I couldn't find the fittings except the male adapter to a tail. And I was buggered if I could find anything else. And then I thought to myself, well, they still got an old steel section, like steel pipe fittings. Back in the days, a lot of these old houses, especially the ones built in the 1920s, all the weatherboard shittos, sort of the things that, aren't built any more than the same era as this house, but not quite that old. The ones that were built in the 1920s, there was quite a few of them in the capital. In fact, my auntie, years ago, when my cousins who are now in their early 20s were like, 2 and 3 years old, they had a house in the early 90s that was one of these 1920s ones, and it still had the original plumbing in, which was shitty plumbing that really needed replacing, which was one of the things they done, I think. And it was all 1-inch steel water pipe, and I knew that you could still buy those steel water pipe fittings, so I thought, if I can't find the bloody plastic ones, go see if you can find the galvanised steel ones. And I did. And there they were, sitting so exceedingly close to where I'd been previously. And then I ended up going back to, and I picked up one of those, and then I went back to the section where I knew I'd seen that piece. And then I had a bit of harder look, and I could find the plastic version. So I thought, well, stuff it. I'm not mixing steel and plastic together because, expansion rates ain't necessarily that great, and, it is where the thread is, they've actually machined it out to bare steel, which has a slight chance of going rusty. And I thought, stuff it, I'll use plastic with plastic, which is the best way to go for thermal expansion and stuff like that. And I've got the right part. And I knew they had hose clamps because I've seen the hose clamps there. And even had individual saddle clamps for me to come home and realise I still got a whole bunch anyway. Which I sort of suspected I did, but I didn't want to, you know, be in the shop, not get the saddle clamps done. I got some at home, get home, I don't have any, and then what am I going to do? Try and tie it up with string in the meantime? Fuck that, I thought. They're there, they're bloody 19 cents a cloud, just fucking get some anyway. So I got some. My plan was to just overflow it into a bucket like I did with the other one. And then I started thinking about this a little bit harder and thought, no, we've got to think a little bit smarter here. Mint that I've got out there, you know, I've got the native mint, but then I've got the chocolate mint in front of it. Not this winter, but the previous winter, it actually went to seed and all died off. And it sounds ridiculous, but it was because I didn't water it enough. But then you never water anything in winter, because it's always raining. But not this winter gone, that's just finished a couple of days ago, but the previous winter, that was the winter when I was working on all the box thorns, and I was piling up box thorns and burning them all the time, and all that crap. That winter it didn't rain, which was why I could burn the box thorns so good. And it really didn't rain enough at all. And believe it or not, in the middle of bloody winter, with temperatures about 5 degrees Celsius, which I gather is around, 45 Fahrenheit or something like that, 42 Fahrenheit, they dried out and died from drying out. But fortunately they went to seed, and of course as a result now we've got just masses of the bloody things. And I've still got to weed them a little bit. I'll have to take the chicken wire off the top and weed them again. But I thought to myself, well, instead of just accidentally, just like these broccoli that just, I'll get to it later, and you get to it a week later, you'll probably do the same thing when it comes to watering the mint. So why not set up this overflow to water the damn mint? And because this document tub's only half the size of the other one, you know, I'm going to be topping it up. The other one, I think I had to top it up basically every 3 days. And this one, I might be topping it up every second day, or less. And as a result, if I have the overflow hook there, you can hear it flowing out of the overflow because it makes such a big trickling noise as it's flowing. But as a result, it might mean that every second day, sometimes every day, the mint gets watered automatically without me going out there, filling up a watering can, walking over to it, pouring, and all that other shit that I know I'm going to forget. Whereas I know I'm definitely going to be turning the tap on to fill that document tub and inevitably waiting for it to overflow. Sometimes I even have it filling up while I'm having a shower, and you hear it overflow, and I just step out of the shower onto the big concrete step and just lean under the sink and turn it off. But in that, you know, it's going to get watered. And it won't be one of these things I'll forget about till a week later as it's all bloody drying out. So anyway, today we're going to set that system up, and I've still got, should be able to see it in here, it's all sort of in the grass a little bit. You can't see too well. Big roll of it still down there. And I think there's at least bloody 35 metres or something in that roll, which get from, just want to look at it. Shouldn't be any more than 15 metres worth I need anyway. Something like that. And yeah, so I'll hook all that in, and if time allows, I probably should just get on and, what's his name it too, weed it all out too. Even the native one needs to be weeded out. Might as well have a look at them while I'm talking shit. That's come out of the plum tree. Some of these ones in the plum tree are turning to shit. There's a lot of these are all rotting off, and it was one of these things where you get this little outer edge that's alive, and then all the rest of it's rotten. And I'm not joking, it was that rotten, there was actually cockroaches eating the bloody centre out. It was completely shagged. So I thought, stuff that, I'm going to trim that off with the reciprocating saw. There's a couple other bits and pieces that turned to shit. There's another one that is hanging right there. that snapped. So I'm going to get up there, but then all the extremities of that also, so I might cut it off right there, because that one there also is shit. Now, I have assumed that a lot of these ones here, them two, are shit, and the other one, I think it's that one there, they're all hanging down. What's happened is they've snapped, but then they've survived, and they still produce a hell of a lot of blossoms. And although they look a bit green and like they're dying, like they sort of, we've got real things with algae, and you would see this in Europe too. So I'm going to show it because I've got too much light behind it. Yeah, see it's going green? That's algae. Cold's primarily gone, but I still cough up bits of shit every now and then. So we've got a lot of algae issues on these things, and when I see that on a branch, I assume it's dead. It's not always dead though. Yeah, those ones are alive. There's some of them where you got majorly, mainly dead, and then it'll just have a couple of little blossoms on the end, and I'll just say stuff it, prune it anyway. There's another chunk there I also cut off, which I didn't quite show. Yeah, the algae is on the ground even out here. Now I showed you it all around the corner there, but it's creeping right back into here as well. There's way more than it looks in the camera. It's not showing anywhere near as bad as I can see it. But yeah, it's I think we had algae at the other side just a little bit last year, but this year it's really going. It's just like a damp as hell, like some sort of a bloody European forest. It's almost like it just stays damp, and so then the algae survives. It's sort of weird like that. I did think we had algae closer to the house, but I might be wrong. Probably am. Nah. Yeah, it's gone from being around there to actually coming around this side as well. So, Black Kitty nearly got a rabbit yesterday, actually. It was stuck under there. I came around the corner, I could hear this squealing, and I thought she had another bat or something like that, or a bird. And then I told her off, and then realised it was a rabbit, and I ran under the box thorn there. And, bloody light. So much light comes in from other areas, you can't really see terribly well. Yeah, and I've got a stick and I pushed it, and it ran out from under there. It actually got itself more or less caught under the box thorn, and then it ended up running around through here, and she chased it right around there, came up through here, and she lost it somewhere in here, and then I saw her down the pit there. I don't know what happened to the friggin' rabbit, but I come out a few minutes later, like about 15-20 minutes later, and sort of started looking through all these stinging nettles, seeing if we could see it, and I looked in the ones in front of my bedroom, and then I started looking around here, and Ginger Cat is sitting on the pile of wood out there. Oh, Ginger Puss is hanging around, and I don't think she hates him quite as much as she used to, because she ended up coming up near him and all that, and they went around the back of that tank, and I couldn't really see what was going on, but they didn't seem too annoyed at each other. Usually she comes running up like she's trying to chase him away, but a bit of a... Oh yes, it is closer to the house. Algae here. I knew it was closer to the house, and I had to show where it was. Of course, if you hit direct sunlight like this area, not a chance, but you get a bit of shade, or primarily shaded by other trees and stuff like that, and it has a chance to get going because of being under shade most of the time. But there's the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of little mint plants, just hundreds of them. So when it's seeded, all the seeds sort of keep swirling around in the wind, and they're held in by this, like as in the wind comes in, and it just sort of tornadoes around in a circle. As soon as it comes in, it doesn't blow off the edge. because where the potting mix is versus where the edge is, it just sort of keeps them all in. And they tend to build up more on this side too. So, I don't know if you can... these cameras are fucking glorious. You can see a bit there. Now you can see it. Now I've got my hand on one side. Yeah, and that's really bloody thick through there. These sods have come up. I've got to piss all them off. There's my native mint, and there's the other one I bought. And yeah, I have to keep watering these. I'm hoping that their runners that they've shot out here are sort of about to settle into the ground. And this one seems to come right up and gone around the corner. There's a bit of luck there. Going to start rooting into the ground and spread themselves out further. And instead of having boring shop-bought mint, I'll have both chocolate-scented mint and native mint, which very few people at all have native mint because, well, you've got to buy it from this government place to even get it, because they have all the natives and they can go tromping through there. I've never seen it other than in that government nursery and in the botanical gardens. And the botanical gardens has their own nursery that you can buy from, but you've got to go to the right place and you've got to go to the right time of the week, and there's only one day of the week or something, and the entrance is very unknown, unseen sort of an entrance. So it's relatively hard to get native mint, but yeah, I have got some and it looks like it's going to go alright. I've got to work out how I'm going to fertilise it. I might have to just use like your dynamic lift or some sort of natural fertiliser for it. I don't think I think it'll just drop dead if I put pellet fertiliser on it, because it's a native, and a lot of natives are used to the shit soil, like sandy crap soil, because a lot of this country just has sandy crap soil, especially where these natives grow anyway, and so you've got to be very careful about fertilising it. So there is actual native fertiliser as well, I've been told, so I might look into that, but yeah, don't know if I can justify buying a whole box over just one little thing like that, so, or two little plants like that. They're very interesting. The native mint, it is, to me, it is absolute premium. Very small leaves, you know, there's, some of you may know about there's wild strawberries in Switzerland that are very small strawberries, but they're super sweet. They're, you know, really quite a premium thing. And this is the same, you know, that's, out of all the mints I've come across, some mints are a bit rough or a bit coarse, or these ones have very soft leaves, and it is like a super fresh mint. It's not some sort of it's mint, like sucking on some bloomin' lolly or something. This is like a super duper fresh one, and when you squeeze a leaf in your fingers, I'm not joking, instead of just having watery sap as you're rubbing it in your fingers, it is about 1/3 watery sap, 2/3 oil, so they're very high oil content compared to any other mint I've ever come across. Surprisingly so, to the point you can actually feel it's oily when you crush a few of the leaves in your fingers and, you know, rub it against your index finger and your thumb. You can feel there's bloody oil on your fingers. So, yeah. But anyway, that's, you know, like the other stuff that took 2 years to take over the entire IBC. That stuff's probably going to take 2 years to take over the entire IBC. And the other thing is, with normal mint that may be invasive and go berserk, this is native mint. So, it's a native. So if I start throwing seeds all over the front lawn, who gives a shit? Because it's, if it was invasive, it would have already overtaken the bush, but it hasn't. So, so it's not invasive because it's a native one, and it's actually quite hard to come by, so it's not going to run away like the normal mint. But then again, because of the size of this IBC being up, none of the seeds even seem to get out. If any of it was going to run away, the other stuff would have spat the seeds over the side of the IBC and gone for it anyway. And in case you're wondering, I don't think sheep would eat mint. I think it would be out of there. range of taste. Sheep like things that we would just about be gagging on, and although they do like broccoli and stuff like that. And having said that, it's probably almost time to start picking some of these older spinach and just like uprooting them. Some of these broccoli will be going the same way, and they'll be getting fed to sheep before too long, just all the leaves and crap. I have seen a salad that they sell in the supermarket. It's a high fibre salad, and I'm not joking. They use a few different things, but one of the things they do is they shred up broccoli leaves. And I had one of those salads because it was on special, and then I realised why it was on special, and that was because no one else was buying it, and there's a good reason no one else is buying it. I'm not eating that shit again. Broccoli leaves raw, they might be high in fibre, but bloody hell, they're full, man, it's rough. It's very coarse stuff to be chewing on. You feel like you're a horse as you're eating it because you're churning away trying to eat through it. But anyway, I suppose they'll sell whatever they can sell to whoever will buy it. And it seems as though no one's buying that stuff anyway. Anyway, waffled on for enough there, and we've got to get on with stuff. Oh, well, thankfully I didn't need to use a torch in the dark to show myself putting in 6 screws into a bit of plywood, and that went surprisingly quick. Yeah, it's improvised. What do you expect? That's the way things are used or are done so quick. In fact, I didn't even use any saddle clamps. I did use a few zip ties and a bit of craft wire though that I think is galvanised craft wire. Actually, I'm sure it is, because it's about 20 years old and it wouldn't have survived by now. It was anyway. That's me, the thing. That stupid bloody 90-degree bend bit. I tried to put a bit of Teflon tape on. I don't know if it's because of the Teflon tape, but the thread fucking bogged out. So then I tried to cut the thread out with a set of box cutters. And then I thought, what am I even trying on this end for? So I flipped it around and tried the opposite end on the one coming out of the tank there. Can't really see because every piece of it's black, but instead of trying to use one end, I just flipped it around and used the other end, and it went straight on. And I got rid of all the Teflon tape. I had heard you aren't supposed to use Teflon tape with plastic, but I did not want to use it and then see it leak like a piece of shit and then have to go and take it all apart and take the hose clamp off, yada yada yada, and re-put it all back together. But anyway, it's all worked. I don't know if you can see the what's his name there. Little stainless steel hose clamp. It's a thing, I got the thing from above shining. The hole in the wall there shining so much you can barely see a bloody thing. As usual, you just see a whole bunch of bright light behind, and everything just starts to silhouette instead of being visible. Anyways, I'll leave that running, and we might be able to watch it all in action. I had to go very gently, and I think I went successfully. See that piece of wire there that's holding this bit of wood? You get very close to the pipe. And yeah, I didn't puncture through the pipe, but I had to go rather gentle. And that bit of wood's tied there. And I put in a fence post and a screw there. That bit of sheet metal there is just acting like a washer, because I was concerned that that bugle head screw might pop straight through one of those holes. So yeah, bit of sheet metal. And it just holds a bit of wood and a few zip ties and shit. I couldn't put it all to this. Long story behind what all this structure is, but as you can see, it was not made out of treated pine, and it's all rotten as shit. So it was going to be no good to mount anything on anyways. A bit of luck, no little sheep will kick the hell out of this. Might be a bit more than a bit of luck. I might need a lot of luck. But they tend to walk sort of gingerly around the house probably because you've got so much shit around here, and they're a bit, you know, cat's going to come out and stare at them, and I think they're a bit more cautious. The grass out in the paddock is always more eaten than the stuff around the house. Anyway, we continue on out here. A bit of wire on that one, a bit of wire there. I was going to try and go up over the top of this and then back down, and I realised I was going to kink the pipe even trying, so I just said bugger it. And I got the hole saw and I just went through the side and just put it through the hole from the hole saw. And when I take all this mesh off, I might actually, you can get a bit of fencing wire and you make it like a J shape, almost like a friggin' tent peg, and then you jam that in to the potting mix to hold it down, and it won't hold it in very good because potting mix is such a loose sort of stuff, but it will stop it from dangling in mid-air like that, and I assume that with a few hot days it might sit down, but this is the thing, you know, it sits there, it comes out of the factory in a roll, and it's still cooling down as it's, you know, in the roll sort of thing, and it just sort of always wants to curve up. You'll know what I mean if you've done irrigation. The shit always wants to keep rolling itself back up again, so with a bit of fencing wire in a U shape or a J shape jammed into there, it should hold it sort of in the middle. That's the general idea anyway. And it'll probably all end up just watering one side and not watering the other. Anyway, at least some of it will survive in the process. I might actually turn that down a bit lower because I think it feels so bloody fast. It might be a bit too fast for it. See, the inlet pipe's half an inch. It's a half-inch inlet pipe that's under pretty high gravity, and there's only a 3/4 inch overflow. So I may, now that it sounds like it's getting full, I'll turn it down a bit. You can hear it sort of hissing against the ball valve as I turn the ball valve down. I think it's starting to get pretty full. Turn the lights on here. There you go. See, the other one will make quite a noise because it was that huge big bloody white pipe. I mean, that's 90 mil, which is nearly 4 inches. I think it's 3 5/8 wide, so it's sort of fairly thunder down that into a bucket and you'd hear it. Hopefully there's no thing that's crawled up inside any of this piping. Realistically, I should have tried the old trick I used to do, which is where I blow the end, and if you've got something stupid like a dead mouse in there or whatever, you'll know about it, but it was all brand new piping and it was all just sitting in a coil, and you don't assume anything has a reason to go up there, but it doesn't mean the lizard's not going to walk up there to, you know, stay in the warmth of the sun and then forget what way he walked in and just keep walking into the middle and die in there. But often enough I just sort of give it a bit of a blow, so if there's any questionable stuff I'll feel the constriction in the pipe by blowing it, but the bigger the pipe is, the less likely you are to actually sense a constriction. But it has happened with half-inch pipes, garden hosing that I've used for stuff, where I felt a constriction by blowing it. I didn't have a shower last night either, actually, which is unusual for me. You know, most people think off-gridders, oh, they're not too worried about not having showers. Yeah, well, I am. I'd have a lot of random shit laying around, but I'll tell you what, it's most of it's got a purpose to be used at a later point, spare materials, and there we go. Just because I'm not necessarily perfectly organised doesn't mean I ain't obsessed with making sure I have a daily shower. It's got to have one, and then the house owners come back a little bit before I expected. So there we go, that's overflown, as you can see there. And at this point, I turn off the tap. I'm not sure if I could hear it even overflowing in here, but yeah, it might be very hard to tell when it's overflowing. Might be something that you can hear, but you just got to be listening harder. And it may very well have just started overflowing as I was sitting out there. Probably not though, because effectively the way this one runs, this pipe, this line is going to hold water, and it's going to have to hold water in the line between, sort of basically from the height of where it enters the IBC, the tallest point where it enters the IBC, back to wherever the height of that line lines up with that bit of wood that's against the wall there. And yeah, things work that way quite well. I know of a number of legitimate plumbing systems that are set up like that. Not everything flows out and empties out completely to its lowest point. So this should have built up a bit of water in it, which would probably be, I can actually hear it flowing. When it overflows, it doesn't just go and then stop. I know the other one used to just keep drizzling for like, bloody hell, it was like another half an hour, at least 20 minutes. And it's just like the last few little bits of drips that it just sort of, yeah, slowly gets back to its level. Don't know why it actually takes so long, but it done that with the other one too. Should be able to hear that. But anyway, that'll probably hold water in at level 2, I'd say about there or something like that. And I think that's why we can hear the noise so well there, is because this is where the drips, just a little bit is trickling down and then hitting the stuff that's sitting in the line there. And what will end up happening over time, this will sort of sit down more and, you know, it won't have as many curves and all that. It sort of, you know, sits a bit flatter under the weight of water after having water in it for a couple of months. It sort of settles lower to the ground and nestles into the grass a bit better, obviously. Wind will do the same thing if something's, and just general rain and sheep movement and stuff like that, anything that's sitting up will sort of settle down lower, which is why that a lot of this line here, have a look at this, this was just literally dropped on top of the dirt. It was never dug in. Yet if you look here, 3/4 of it is underground. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's basically going under the soil. And that's just basic sheep movement and wind-blown dirt and stuff, and it's sort of slowly sinking under the ground. And yeah, even as you move out through there, it sort of is all submerged just a little bit, but it's more so at this point, I think, because I've gone and walked over here and hopped over to go out where the front of my bedroom is, especially when I was running this. Come out here to light this, and you know, step over here to step there to dump the ash in there, and you sort of, you end up kicking a bit of dirt up yourself, and it ends up a little bit submerged. But anyway, that's good that that's working. I obviously didn't drill through this pipe in the process of putting that wire in, otherwise we'd see a couple of little drips coming down, and there was absolutely nothing, so that was good. And I believe in here it's all stayed watertight as well. Isn't that big a deal really, because it had only probably let go of a few drips, but, and you know, those few drips would evaporate in the heat of the day, but I don't like the idea of doing plumbing that isn't perfectly watertight, and this plumbing is perfectly watertight. Yeah, even where it connects into the document tub, perfectly watertight. That's good, that's the way plumbing is supposed to be. Anyways, that's that successful little shenanigan, and yeah.